Yeah, thanks. You guys can hear me?
Yes,
Hello?
you're
Yes, sir.
audible very
Okay.
much. Very good.
Anubha is there. Anubha will share the screen. While she does that, let me quick start. I think we're late by 4 minutes, so apologies. In this track, so far we have been a lot listening about the technical topics. So what we thought is we'll kind of give it a slight twist, take something which is very close to our heart, which is culture. So our topic is does culture eat a strategy over breakfast? Uh, so before we start, a quick round of introduction. Me and my co-speaker. So I'm Saurabh Bhardwaj with 20 plus years of experience as tech evangelist. Was working as general manager QA and transformation in voice. I'm speaker in various testing and DevOps
Hi everyone.
forum. Last 3 years of I've been last year there have been 3 white papers which were winners in the European and DevOps testing forums. So that's me, Saurabh, and now Anubha, you can introduce.
Yeah, hello friends. Good evening. My name is Anubha, and I have 18 years of experience in working as a service delivery manager with Voice. We are quite late in the evening, and I'm sure many of you would be tired already. But yes, as Sabby mentioned, our session is really interesting, so it will not bore you, and it will keep you glued to this session. So let's start with that.
Good. So can we
Now
have
over to
slide
you,
number
Sabby.
2? I think we are on slide 3. Yes. So our topic is, does culture eat strategy for breakfast? And not that we have coined this particular phrase. It was by Peter Drucker, but it was quite something that we faced firsthand in terms of our cultural transformation. So this is a case study which has happened and how did we turn around. So we will talk about that in next 20-25 hours, 20-25 minutes. But that's next slide. So right. So culture transformation. So why it is so important? Why is that a buzzword? We heard about a company called Enron. What is the first thing you would know about when you hear about Enron? I think that comes is a lot of negativity. So Enron was close to 100 billion company with 29K employee, but it doomed within a year of 2009, and that was because the culture of falsifying facts, figures, things like that. So that caused a bit of a problem. Why Enron? Let's look at our own country, India. We had in 90s we had a company called Satyam Computers. I'm sure a lot of you heard about Satyam Computers, one of the fastest growing IT organization. But what happened in 19? It went down because there was a culture of accounting, falsifying and all. No problem with strategy. Strategy was one of the best, but the culture was not there. They were trying to deceive and they doomed. And that was like a black mark for IT software industry. People were scared. They didn't know about this thing. It's not all bad about culture. If you look at some of the Fortune 500 companies, they have been extensively working, focusing on culture. Some of the top 25 companies like Google, Adobe, Microsoft, sorry, there's a bit of a background noise, are among those who are extensively focusing on culture. And I just wanted to showcase a recent article 2022 by McKinsey, which was an interview of Rishad Premji, who has taken an executive chairman for Wipro. Rishad says, that culture is one of the important things, and he knows that Wipro needs to transform the culture if they have to be the top leaders. In fact, he himself mentioned that he did 89 sessions, spent 300 hours meeting 28,000 employees to establish the right culture. See, this is the kind of time and effort an executive chairman has been putting in the company. I think this talks a lot about how much of focus culture, what focus the CIOs, CXOs put on culture. So that's there. So let's go on to the next slide, Anubha. Yeah. Does culture eat strategy for breakfast? So this was something which was quoted by management group Peter Drucker. No matter how strong is your strategy, it's the efficacy of the team implementing which is important. If our employees aren't passionate on company's vision strategy will not stand any chance. So Peter Drucker says corporate culture is never definite. It is very complex and ever changing. It's a crucial factor for its long-term success of every business. Many CEOs, CIOs, CTOs, chairmen focus on financials and rational legal side, but fail to incorporate an appropriate culture. Culture is the way our company as a whole operate towards fulfilling the goal, mission, and culture. So that's why our focus has been that culture is quite important. Next slide.
Just a moment, I think it's freezing for me. Just a moment. I'm not able to. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is like iceberg dilemma. So when most of the companies focus on strategies because these are easier to plan, easier to see, easier to track and evaluate, and they fail to understand that biggest challenge lies, below the water surface. It's the culture. Culture is something which is harder to see, which is harder to discuss, harder to manage. So so you can have, very strong strategies, but culture is the habitat in which strategy lives or dies. So culture determines the way the game would be played. So if culture and strategies are complementing and nurturing each other, when these are in sync, there could be incredible organizational transformations. Now, as we are talking about culture, so what is culture basically? Culture is the way your company as a whole operates, like the how people, have the collection of values and practices that is being done or actioned by all the team members. Now if you look at the culture, there are three levels of culture. The first is artifacts, implicit norms and behavior, the things that you can touch, you can smell, you can see. For example, happy hours, free lunches, your company holiday parties. This is typically what most of the people think of, when it comes to the culture. Now, the second is espoused values and beliefs. So, this is one layer deeper. And these are the things that you think you believe and that you say that you believe. So, if you look at the mission statement that your company has written, or the six core values that your CEO is talking about in all the in every all hands meetings, so those are your espoused values and beliefs. The final layer is your basic underlying assumptions or unwritten rules. So this is the things you actually believe. So this is the final core layer of the culture, and this is the one which steers our decision making, and this is how we do things around here, and basically it impacts our culture. So if we are able to control our underlying assumptions, we can influence our culture. Now, I would like to give an example of Microsoft here. So Microsoft used to be a cutthroat competitiveness organization under Steve Ballmer, till it was transformed by Satya Nadella, who took as CEO in 2014. So Satya basically transformed company culture, and he brought in significant changes in some of the areas. One of being employee review process, and the other one being interdepartmental relationships. So he encouraged a culture where they favored continuous learning over competitiveness. So instead of proving themselves, employees were encouraged to improve themselves. So that culture has made Microsoft as one of the most valuable companies in like nowadays. Now moving on, so before going further in our case study, I would like to give two inspirational examples that we have seen. So the one is US Southwest Airlines. Now this was founded around 50 years ago, and that time they have competitors like American Airlines and Delta in US, and these two have been like around for twice as long, but still Southwest held its own. Why? Because of its culture. Now, Southwest culture idea is that employees and not customers come first. Well, yeah, it might sound wrong. Maybe it should be the other way around. But as Southwest explains, happy employees will lead to a greater customer satisfaction and greater company earnings. They believe that empowered employees make great ambassadors, and that affect customers' experience and the success of their business. So they basically designed their operational philosophy, putting safety first. So all the employees were expected to follow the company policies and procedures at an acceptable level, so that they are in compliance with regulatory requirements. Now next, they had like the being low cost or being reliability. They after operating safely, they balance both of these while operating with world class hospitality, and that is the success story of Southwest and how it sustained. Now, when we are talking about inspirational stories, I think we cannot ignore Salesforce. So Salesforce is our cloud software giant, and its culture is one of family and service. So if you would ever visit Salesforce company page, you will see the word ohana. Now, what does ohana means? It's a Hawaiian term that means family. So the sense of community drives all the aspects of work in Salesforce. So they basically have encouraged a culture where four values: trust, customer success, innovation, and equality are stressed. They give a lot of stress on equality, and they are trying to eliminate the wage gap because of gender, because of races, and because of ethnicities. And they also have the unique approach to service, wherein under one model, Salesforce actually donates 1% of its product equity and also time to various communities. So providing 7 days of paid volunteer time off to its employees is one of its policies. And we know that Salesforce is best place to work, and there would be hardly any list of best places to work which will not include Salesforce. Now we will talk about some aspects of cultural
Before we go
transformation.
there, Anubha, I think there was one more case which we didn't put, but that came in the FIFA 2022.
Mhm.
I think a lot of people have been following FIFA, particularly the soccer, the football matches. But there was one instance which became quite noticeable and was on the print media and everywhere,
Yes.
and that was about the culture. Let me give you let me give you this thing about Japan. Yeah, you rightly guessed. I think it was the Japan's culture which came out quite well. The fans after Japan game cleaned up the entire stadium, and the Japanese soccer player cleaned up the entire clock room, changing room after they finished. I mean, that was one of the things which stood out, even in the game of sports. So it's not that culture only in organization, even in areas like sports, it stands out. So that was one thing I thought it will be apt to mention here. Go ahead.
Right, very rightly said. Latest examples, Abhi. Um, so now we will talk about some aspects of cultural transformation and changes that we implemented in our team at Tech Voice and how it benefited us. So in the pre-transformed state, our team was testing a complex architecture, complex landscape, wherein end-to-end testing would include multiple vendors, multiple teams, and they need to come together for completing the end-to-end test case execution and also for triaging the defects. There were multiple reasons why they could not have collaboration, because teams were operating on different time zone. They had different tools, and at times the communication was delayed, so that resulted into lack of transparency and lack of trust. So there was less synergy overall. Also, we were not that good at that time in automation, and there were in some buckets there were waterfall project management, and of course, as I mentioned, we were working in silos. So sometimes there was late engagement in requirement discussion, that actually resulted into the late detection of defects, that resulted into the multiple test execution or multiple cycles of the test execution. So this was different problems that we had before we started to look at different aspects and started to make some changes. So coming to next slide, Sabi.
Yeah. Yes, thanks. So, as Anubha mentioned, I know we also face a similar cultural challenges in terms of silos and things like that, which was impacting the strategy implementation. So we looked into a different way attributes of culture. There were four main attributes that we started focusing on. Since we were a QA organization, automation mindset was the first of the thing that we passionately tried implementing it. Whatever you do manually should turn automation. We had automathon within the organization, within the teams. Change into automation mindset. People were awarded for those who came back with a manual problem to be solved with automation. Second was cross team collaboration. I think we made it a point to rotate and do a lot of cross team interactions within QA, outside QA, with support functions and things like that. Transparency was another important thing. Nothing has to be hidden. Most of the governance reports were put on SharePoint with 24/7 online. Anybody, including the customer, would give given access to those, and highly transparent. Even risk issues were highly made clear to them, and continuous feedback and improvement. Instead of having quarterly or annual feedback, we started having continuous feedback as much as weekly. We started doing that. So these were our four levers, I think, that were quite helpful in terms of doing cultural transformation. Having said that, yeah, if we can move to the next slide. It's frozen. So these were our post transformation. We got an After implementing the cultural transformation, we got a team which had did a rapid delivery, highly reliable. Scalability was there. We improved collaboration, security, and speed. I mean, we moved away from all waterfall to more of an agile, working in sprints and delivering faster. One of the projects, we moved from a 5 to 6 week of release to a 3 weeks of release. So that was one of the thing that we implemented. And no big strategies, no big offsites and all, just simple cultural transformation within the organization, just to make people understand, make them passionate about it and make them deal with it. So that was there. And quickly, if we move to the next slide, there are some enablers. As you can see, team engagement. People were all asked to join the team engagements with video ons. Frequent feedback. We had a lot of feedbacking sessions that we were allowed. Not only that, 360 feedback for managers. We moved away from a fixed mindset to more of an agile and a growth mindset. People were kind of awarded who had more agile, who were ready to take more challenges, stretch targets, and things like that. Collaboration was the key. We awarded and rewarded people who could bring out example where collaboration was key. It was not I, it was we, which was the more focus of the thing. Yeah, next slide.
Just a moment.
So while we talked about it, I think there are some numbers, some benefits which came up, and I think it will be good to
Can
discuss
you
some
see
of
it?
these numbers. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
visible. Thanks, Anubha. So one was definitely one of the biggest thing we saw is 60% reduction to time to market. Initially, we were taking a lot of time in terms of testing and deployments and release process, but with a new culture, new transformed culture, we were able to get a 60% reduction when it comes to faster release and time to market. 83% improvement in test execution just by collaboration, transparency, and making people passionate about what they're doing, rather than ask them what they have to do. They were coming forward and doing the execution with more of cross collaboration happening. We see a lot of improvement in execution. Low cost to resolve defect in early stage of early engagement of test and design. More of test and design teams collaboration led to a lot of defects getting resolved quite early. Reduction in multiple test cycle due to defect rate drops. Again, we saw a lot of improvement in terms of defect were less because there were a lot of collaboration. People were talking. There were a lot of transparency. The last 2 points were the key. Highly motivated team. We never had a team which we had to force to do certain activities. It was highly motivated, and once we had a highly motivated team, definitely a happy customer was in. Now, I think you may find it a little not so this thing that how come you do these changes without strategy or bringing in tools, but this is commonsensical. I mean, big organizations have shown that if they change the culture, you can transform the organization from not so good to to a very good kind of organization, and we gave some example. So that was in total we wanted to talk about where we are. I think we have a good 5 minutes
Yes.
to do some Q&A. Anubha, you want to add few more things? I think we have a few minutes. So you want to add something before we go to Q&A?
I think not really, Sabi. I mean, we could probably take if there are any Q&A or any questions and any queries from anybody.
Yeah, I can see two on the chat, so maybe I'll pick them and then we'll open this. So one is asked by Saurabh Singh. was there any hurdles while you implemented the culture change in the team? Yes, there were many hurdles. I am sure you would agree with me that any change is resisted. People, we have an inertia that we don't want to change. But what was important was a top bottom approach, wherein the leads, the managers first made the change and showcased it, and then the team followed it, because they follow their leaders, they follow the managers. So if you're changing, and if you start seeing the benefits in terms of collaboration, in terms of working as a team, definitely people will get adapted to it. It is not that we are born that we don't want to work in that. So yes, there were hurdles, but I think with a top bottom
Yeah,
approach, by showing
it was
benefits,
overcome.
yeah.
In
Go ahead,
fact,
Anubha.
I would like to add that yes, the one of the biggest hurdle was automation mindset, wherein we could see some resistance to adapt to automation. But as we mentioned, once we start seeing the benefits, start getting the benefits, it automatically came and was adapted and adopted by all the team members. But yes, whenever you are making some changes, initial resistance might be there till people can really relate to it and can start seeing benefits.
Absolutely. There's another question on the chat by Archana. Archana writes how the culture of SaaS organization can be changed as more working at customer location need to follow a customer culture. Okay, so a great question, Archana. I think if I understand your question, it is saying that you are from an organization who deputes you to work in a customer location, and how do you show culture? This is the right opportunity where you can bring in change in terms of either by seeing something which is working in the customer that you want to implement in your home organization, or from an home organization you can do, which can change the customer culture. There was one example that I thought I will kind of highlight it here in terms of similar thing. So I'll not name the organization, but I was part of an A organization working for a B organization, and there were challenges in terms of the automation mindset. As you said, the B company thought that by bringing in automation, a lot of people will lose the jobs. They were resisting to it. So that is where we kind of showcase how our own company changed by moving in automation, and the team was allowed to work on more better kind of projects, something which is more strategic in nature rather than doing manual job. So that was one of the things that we could showcase, and they make the customer organization understand and do it. So I think there is a lot of acceptance in terms of if you showcase the right thing. So nobody will stop you. So if you find something good in your home organization that you want to change in customer, go ahead. Or if you pick something good from customer organization, go and implement it there. I think keeping our eyes and ears open in accepting is what is important. Anubha, you want to add something?
No, Sabi, I think you have covered everything. So there is one more question I can see, that on a large scale, how can we assess organization culture, or how do we get to understand about existing culture in any organization? Because it's on a large scale there. So it's very good question. And as we mentioned, culture is a broad term, and it is difficult. It is really difficult, to get the pulse or get it right. But if we look at broader level, there are four kinds of organizational culture. So I can just give you like the first one is clan, which is like where co-workers are considered as family. So we talked about Salesforce culture, so that is the clan culture. The second is adhocracy. So adhocracy, as the word says, adhoc, so it is more like move fast and break things, so more generally seen in the startups. The third one is the market culture, where everyone is uh, result oriented and people want to win and accomplish their goals. And fourth is hierarchy culture. I think every one of us would know it, wherein more structure and processes are there. But for assessing or for seeing where you stand, you will have to do some big exercise. So one of I have actually seen in the on the net, that there is like OCAI, organization culture assessment instrument, and it was by Quinn and Cameron. So that was being used by many of the organizations, but I'm sure there would be many more which could be used for doing this exercise. But it's a huge exercise, and definitely there are many aspects to it.
Yeah,
um
I Yeah, I think you're right. Just to add one more thing, Anubha, is some things like Wipro. When I was reading the article which was
Mm-hmm.
published in McKinsey 2022 about Rishad Premji, who took over executive chairman for Wipro, he is saying that we have to change the culture and from top bottom. That means the entire organization has to be more agile, and if they have to fight, otherwise, white elephants gets cleaned up in the organization. We have cases. I mean, one Enron we mentioned. There was others like Toys R Us. I know these were the companies who decided not to change the culture, and today they are non-existent. So it is there, but there's also there are thoughts that you can change cultures in pockets and probably
Mm.
grow to the bigger organization. So both of them can work, or they can go hand in hand, kind of thing.
There is one more question that I can see. What's the best practice to implement the cultural changes in the team? Again, there could not be one best practice because culture itself is, very huge, very vast. But I understand that if you want to transform any culture, there could be three wide steps that you can take, in all the scenarios. The first is that you have to identify what needs to change and what does not need to change. So you need to secure buy-in from your leaders, you need to survey your workforce, and you need to understand what needs to change. After that, the second phase would be the build phase, wherein you will tell stories, you will reinforce it time and again, and will do it again and again, so that all of your employees are covered. And of course, the third is maintain. You have to see that if you need to maintain any of your people management processes or any other processes, so that these align to your new culture. So broadly, if we take these three steps, it should help us to implement cultural changes. But again, this is a huge vast exercise. It will not be done in 1 week or 2 weeks. It has to keep on going to bring it effectively. Sabi, you would like to add?
No, I think you have more or less covered everything. I think the point is it is definitely not easy. It is difficult, but we should not put it under the wraps or under the carpet and leave it. Someday it will come back and bite us. The early the better. And in today's organization where things, or in today's world where things are changing rapidly, who thought that possibly the digital cameras will have problems with mobile phones. But now today mobile phones have killed the digital camera world altogether. So what can work, what cannot work, we don't know, but change is the only constant thing. So with that, I think we would like to close it. We are on time.
Yep.
So thank you everybody for joining us. Feel free to put your questions and all. Over
Saurabh
to
and
moderator.
Anubha, I would like to open now the audience. Okay, they can rather typing the questions. They can talk
Yes,
to you.
yes.
Yeah. So audience, okay, you can unmute yourself and talk to the speakers. Okay. So in meantime, okay, when some I have a question. Okay, how should the culture see the mental health of the people who are working on the floor? Like, and what are the steps the manager or a lead should take care to ensure that the team has got the sound mental health in the workplace, and so that they can deliver best. That's
Yeah.
the best.
Maybe I'll start with few
Yes.
points, and Anubhav possibly you can add on. See, mental health of employees definitely key, and that is very important. However, we have seen that the mental health sometimes deteriorates for an employee if there is no proper culture. You may have heard about diversity not being included, challenges with gender diversity. There is a lot of politics going in an organization. These create problem in mental health. So if you have a right culture which let's say encourages people, transparency is there. Possibly my take has been that mental health of the employees have improved a lot. But there are still, if there are certain cases, if there is openness, transparency, manager is available, lead is available, individual go and talk to them and say that I have this challenge, how can I solve it? They talk to their team, they talk to their peers. So it is important to have a culture which induces an atmosphere where people can go and talk about their mental health and get solution. And that is only possible if you do a cultural transformation. Otherwise, it is very difficult, and you will find more and more cases of mental problems. So that would be my take. Anubha, anything you want to add?
So I would like to add one buzzword here: psychological safety. So psychological safety, if it is there in the organization, we will have that employee, continuing with you, with your team, with your organization. And that psychological safety would be there when, employee is free to share their thoughts, when they are comfortable, discussing their views, and when, they are allowed to even fail when they are trying new things. So when these things are there, definitely employee will not have that mental stress, because they are in an open environment. They can discuss things around, and they can have, guidance, and if needed, they will have guidance from mentors. So psychological safety will ensure that your employees are having good mental health. And without good mental health, I mean, we talked about it, so people are key for implementing any cultural change, and that would help, to implement your strategies. So we definitely, it's one of the key aspect to have good mental health of our employees.
Okay, with that, I have one last question. So we know that the system is political system, and when we are in a system which is political, we have to be political. Now, how to balance that career on the floor along with the culture being political? It's like how to move ahead in career by being political. So I cannot say that I refrain from being political. So at least in one point of time I'll be in a state where I'll have to be the political, right? So how to deal with that situation?
You want to take it, Anubha?
Well, I can just add my thoughts that being politically correct is definitely needed. At times, you have to be politically correct. However, I still feel that at the end, if you are aligning with your organizational policy or organizational culture, you will be able to manage it. To closer. I mean, sometimes you do happen to make mistakes, but yes, I mean, it is all right sometimes to accept your mistakes, and
Yeah.
then the only thing is that, you don't repeat it next time. So being politically correct is definitely needed, but at times, even if you are not, and you are aligning to, those basic values, those beliefs, your cultural, organizational culture and belief system, I think still you can move forward. I have seen examples, I mean, in my, like, with my colleagues, wherein, they were being honest, but yes, at the same time, they ensured that they are making the corrections timely, and then they are not repeating it. Sabi, you would like to add something?
Yeah. So if there is a, politics, and you have to be politically correct, I think that gives a signal that the culture of that organization is definitely not the right one. So my personal recommendation is raise it up. If you're not feeling comfortable and all, raise it up. Try, your efforts in terms of what you can do, if not in larger places, in smaller pockets. If you are in an influencing position, please influence, bring in the culture. I would say that if you make change, everybody takes that step of making the change, I think the culture will change. I'm sure we are always thinking that why should I put my foot or effort to change the culture, but if everybody starts thinking that way, possibly will never. So I think let's take that ownership, and let's take a oath out of this session, that once we go back to our organization on Monday, we'll look for things where we can change for the betterment, how we can make our cultures change. And if everybody does that, you don't need big guys to come and make the change. You can change it yourself. That's how I would say.
Okay, I see hand raised by Anvesh Putula. So Anvesh, you want to unmute yourself and ask the question you have? Anvesh, you
Yes,
have
yes.
Yes, Anvesh, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear
Yes.
you. We can hear you.
Yes. A great session, Sabi and Anubha. I had one question
Thank
with
you.
respect to balancing cultural transformation with the business objectives. Often cultural transformation takes a long time. It's a matter of months or often years.
Correct.
At the same time, you have business objectives that are of high priority that you want to achieve. So how
Right.
do you manage and balance both these while achieving your business objectives, also achieving cultural transformation?
Good question. Maybe I'll start and then Anubha, you can add. A good question, Anvesh. And I think that's something which hits everybody's brain whenever we talk about cultural transformation. So I was expecting that question. So thanks, Anvesh, for bringing it out. See, culture should not stop you implementing anything. Culture should be like a DNA of an organization which should run. You can't change the DNA. You can, it's a DNA which should work seamlessly in anything. So my first take should be that we should never consider culture or cultural transformation objecting to your deliverables or something. It should be inbuilt in it. Now, if I move from a waterfall to an agile or an agile mindset, it should not change my deliverables. In fact, it should improve my deliverables because I have now moved away from a waterfall mindset to an agile mindset. So I'm able to deliver not in years, but in months and weeks kind of thing. So my take on that, Anvesh, would be that we should not look at culture being a deterrent, culture being a time-taking thing. It should be more like a DNA, which should be inbuilt. So if you think that your team should change from an agile mindset, it should improve rather doing it. If anything is detrimental to your this, then that's not the right activity for the culture. So that should be your first checkpoint, I would say.
Yeah,
Anubha?
yes, even with, as you mentioned rightly, it will never happen over a short duration. It always take longer duration. But even when you are making those changes in pockets or in small pockets, I mean, it should start giving you some benefits. As Sabi mentioned, it should start giving you, I mean, your acceleration should happen for delivering those demands. So
Yeah.
as in when we start this journey, it should benefit us. If it is not, then we should reassess whether we are on the right
Correct.
track, or we needed those changes in first place, or we need to again reassess and look at it once more.
So there is a saying that I am compliant, but I am not committed. So I'll be compliant to do a cultural transformation, but I am not committed. So we should not do that. I mean, both are C, compliance and commitment, but we are looking for commitment and not compliance. Yeah. I hope it answers you, Anvesh. I don't know. Anything you want to highlight?
Yes, it does, Sabi. It does. So
Thank you. Thank you
it's
so
an
much.
enabler to accelerate your business outcome.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes.
Once we are committed that we need a different culture in our organization, things will fall in place. Where there is a will, there is a way. I would say that.
Okay, so I was talking to Anubha some time back. It needs courage to talk about culture, and especially when it comes to the bigger audience as in conference. Yeah. Thanks, Anubha. Thanks, Saurabh.
Thank you.
This was like something nice to listen in a conference which talks about more about the tech stuff. Thank you.
Yeah, that's
Thank
what
you
I
so
said.
much for having us.
That's what I said, that we'll be
Yes.
non-technical and give a refresher to the
Yes.
refresher to people.
Yes.
Okay.
Over to my team member, Brunmai.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Nice talking
Yeah.
to you. Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Saurabh and Anubha, for this great session. Now, I request you to attend.